Hello and welcome back to the Fight and Talk 2 channel with us, the Fight and Talk 2 team. George in Casual Crush Corner. How are we doing, George?
Fabulous. Fantastic.
Good to
Great.
hear, mate. Good to hear. And you stayed awake for the entire night to watch UFC 265, right?
Yeah, I went to bed at 7 a.m. and got up for work at 9 a.m. So I feel fantastic.
Painful. Absolutely painful. How about you, Prath? How you doing, man? I know you're in isolation number 28 for you this year, right?
Feels like it's number 28 for me. Yeah, I feel like I've been in isolation for most of this year. But yeah, unfortunately, the person I'm living with is tested positive. So having to self-isolate, I'm on day 6 of 10, nearly there. I can then go out, I can walk, I can go to the shops, I can do things again. And I actually got to the point where I missed work, which is hard to say because, who likes to actually go to work, but I've actually gotten to the point now where I miss it. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there. But while I'm isolated, it's good to have a UFC card to look forward to and to also enjoy.
That's it. I think it's missing the routine. It's like when the UFC is not on for like 3 weeks over Christmas and New Year, everyone's kind of looking around like, what do we do now on a Saturday night? Like completely lost, Completely lost. Yeah. Well, last night we had some ups and downs, some lefts and some rights. It was a big shame, obviously, not to have the GOAT Amanda Nunes on the card, but we did have some cracking fights. And of course, me and George did a pre-fight to this as well. And we knew that Bobby Green versus Rafael Fiziev was going to be a fantastic fight. And were we right? Yes, we were right, because it got fight of the night. But before that, we are going to talk a little bit about Menil Cap versus Oday Osborne. George, you've been very hyped about this guy for a very long time, and it is about time he got into the win column, right? It's about time he got into the win column. So talk to me a little bit through about how his game plan went yesterday, because it looked like he was getting tagged quite a lot from Oday.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of Menil Cap's kind of game, unfortunately. I feel like he's going to ride his way through the UFC in his fights and kind of get clipped a fair amount and then also clip people back a fair amount. It's going to be a bit like that. But we were right. He needed that win desperately last night, because people that go 0-3 to start their, UFC reign, that's not an attractive place to be. That could land you in some hot water potentially. But a guy that's obviously come so hyped from Ryzen, needed, a win on the board. And last night got it done, a great finish with that knee, to Oday Osborne. And I feel like maybe he's starting to redeem himself a little bit, because obviously I did hype him up at the start, and fair enough as well. A Ryzen champion coming over, it was like, well, this could be pretty good. And had a couple of tough losses, but finally in the win column. Hopefully he can now get himself, a couple more wins and start to think about getting himself ranked. But you know what? From what we've seen so far, who bloody knows? Because it's been a bit up and down, and maybe that's how Menil Cap's career will be. It'll be a bit like a roller coaster.
Yeah, because they didn't give him an easy fight when he was coming into the UFC anyway, facing Pantoja. I mean, coming in and facing such a highly touted gentleman like him is, it speaks a lot for Menil Cap and the reputation that he had behind him before he was coming into the UFC. But unfortunately, he didn't kind of live up. And then it was against a guy, Matheus
Nicolau.
Yeah, for his second fight, which we all thought was going to be like a little bounce back fight. All right, let's get him back in the win column, which it clearly wasn't. But Oday Osborne is not a scrub at all. His performance last night was very, very good up until the point of him kind of leading in and getting drawn in by that knee. But what I thought was very strange, which we don't see a lot in the UFC, was he literally like jumped in, like he frogged downwards to jump for like an ankle pick almost, and then just kind of hopped back up. Prath, did you watch this fight, right?
Yeah. Hop, but yeah, like it was one of the weirdest techniques I've definitely seen in my time. But yeah, like kind of went down, picked him up, and then he was able to get his balance back. So yeah, really weird one, but great finish from Menil Cap. I just want to say, like, loved seeing him get in the win column. I actually hate his personality a lot. When he was fighting in Japan, he was very arrogant, and no one really knew who he was. And now he's starting to make a name for himself here in the UFC. which is awesome because, I wanted to see him back up a lot of the smack talk he kind of was giving in Japan and stuff like that. So, yeah, great finish. Obviously, there was a little bit of, I want to say, like, I guess, not controversy, but there were people saying that maybe a bit of an early stoppage, but not for me. Thought it was perfect. Looked like he got rocked very, very badly from the flying knee. Great follow-ups to with the shots on the ground. And great win for Menil Cap.
Yeah, just on that, I mean, taking a jump knee like that and falling back the way he did, and then Menil obviously jumped straight in, and it was like little kind of, sucker punches, like rabbit punches to the head. But, what do you think, George? Do you think it was an early stoppage, or do you think it was a perfectly timed stoppage before Oday took any more damage?
I think it's all right, to be honest. The knee obviously caused him a lot of damage, then follow him with the shots, and referee kind of says, that's enough, pull him off, and away we go, really. So, yeah, people might say it's an early stoppage. You'll probably find people that are complaining about the fact that he followed him with shots afterwards, but, as Masvidal once said, they're super necessary. So, yeah, I was fine with it, to be honest. I don't really have too much of a bad opinion about the stoppage thing because it's like the other week with Bellator with the kind of McKee Pitbull fight. People were giving it, he stopped him too early. It's like, no, he didn't. He stopped him at the right time. It's like, just like people on social media telling you that they're experts at this all of a sudden. It's like, well, they've done it a bit more than we have. So maybe we should trust their opinion.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the judges who usually do get it wrong because they're terrible.
Yeah, I'll give you that. And I sat there all last night thinking someone here in Texas is going to screw somebody over in a minute. Like, it's going to happen. And to be fair, it kind of didn't at all, really. So, like,
yeah,
kind of got away
to their credit for once.
Yeah,
we kind of. So, yeah, but yeah, man, the judges ain't so good.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say about the judges, just on the next fight that we're going to talk about, the Bobby Green versus Ferreira fight, I didn't see a 30-27 personally.
No.
I did not see a 30-27. I thought Bobby Green had a fantastic night last night. And we spoke about in the pre-fight that this man is very, very difficult to knock out because, I think if my memory serves me right, he's never been knocked out in his UFC career, right? Because he either goes to decision or he's been
TKO. I feel like one of the only people that I can remember off the top of my head is Dustin Poirier. Finished him, TKO'd him. Okay. Didn't finish him, but has TKO'd him. But he might be the only one I can think of.
Yeah, I'm just looking at in recent years, and I'm not seeing anything. Decisions. Yeah, okay. You got TKO KO'd in 2016. So when you're talking 5 years ago, that's a long way back to. And to be
2016, and then before that in 2010.
Yeah, exactly. So, he's a very, very difficult man to knock out. But I thought he had a really good performance yesterday. A really, really good performance. I thought Fiziev looked fantastic. He looked really, really good. His combinations were, at times, I was watching that fight, and I watched it this morning when I woke up. At times, it was like he was 125er. The hands were just flying. He was just so quick, finishing with a leg kick. And those leg kicks didn't seem to do anything to Bobby Green, nothing at all.
Is it safe to say, Connor, that you fancy him a little bit?
I like Fiziev, Fiziev, whatever we're going to call him. I like him, after he knocked out Renato Moicano.
Yeah. I think before that you were on the hype train, though.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think he's good. I think he's got a lot of talent as well. And judging by the commentary from yesterday, throughout the fight, they, DC, John Anik, and Dominic Cruz, they think he's got a lot of potential as well, which I think most of the fans do. There are a lot of people that got very, very high hopes for this guy. But George, tell me, where does Fiziev go next? Because he's not ranked yet, is he? I'm not sure if he's going to be ranked Tuesday because this is not really going to do a great amount for the ranking system, but surely putting on a performance like that and having a night like he did, it's going to be setting him up for a top kind of 12 to 15 bout, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be close now. He's putting in some great performances. And last night was a great performance. Those first 2 rounds, he was really good. The third round, I thought Bobby Green kind of came back, and he was great. Bobby Green, he came to scrap, and boy, did the two of them scrap. I love the fact they were going back and forth, talking to each other for the whole 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And Fizayev's combinations, the combinations that he throws are like 3-4 like punch/kick combinations. They are, like you just said, they're so quick and they're so crisp that he is going to cause people problems, and there are going to be guys that he faces that are less durable than Bobby Green that actually probably last night he would have finished. So he is undoubtedly on a hype train right now. He's putting in great performances. Last night, again, like I said, the first 2 rounds, he was clearly for me, 2 rounds up.
Mm-hmm.
I think a top 15 guy is probably, very close now. I'm not sure who is in that 12 to 15 lightweight ranking at the moment, but Praf probably is on that right now.
I mean, what are you looking for some names here of who we could potentially match him up against?
It's time that he probably got an opportunity to be ranked. He's put on 3 really good performances now, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he is definitely one of the hottest prospects coming out of this year into next year as well. I think next year will be more of a seminal year for Rafael Fiziev. I was actually looking at the top 20 rankings in general for the lightweight division to see where he sits. And according to rankings, MMA or world rankings, he's number 20, which I would say is pretty fair considering he hasn't fought a ranked opponent, but has the credentials, I would say, to basically be just about there, to be honest. So at number 15, you've got Armand Sarukyum. Number 14, Brad Riddell. 13, you got Gamrot. 12, you got Diego Ferreira. 11, Gregor Gillespie. 10, Dan Hooker. Out of those 5, I would say incredible matchups for all 5. But for me, I would say that Diego Ferreira, from just a tactical standpoint, I think just to get him to a good place in the rankings to then give him another big fight would be smart. But in terms of what I would want to see in terms of an amazing fight, Brad Riddell versus Rafael Fiziev would be insane. So I'm hoping that's the fight they make. I would love to see Brad Riddell take a bigger fight in the rankings because I think he deserves it and he's put on absolute banger after banger after banger. But so has Fiziev as well. So interesting to see where they go. But yeah, Brad Riddell or Diego Ferreira would be the natural shoo-ins for his next appointment if it was my choice.
Even Gamrot would be a mad fight, but that would be 2 up-and-comers, 2, future superstars that are going to be pitched up against each other, which is not always what the UFC machine wants to do, because then one of them subsequently will probably fall off the tracks a little bit,
That's the problem with any of these 10 to 15 guys.
True.
Just another really exciting thing about Fiziev is that he's only 27 years old as well, I think. So
28.
Like the prime, 28, like the prime is still probably 4 years away. So, if he's this good now, 4 more years of performances, he's going to be right up there probably.
I've just seen that Diego Ferreira is actually matched up against Grant Dawson coming up in. Oh no, wait, hang on, that's already been done. The dates on this one is a bit weird, apparently.
I tell you what I did see. They were talking about doing Brad Riddell against Gregor Gillespie, try and rebook that fight. And apparently Armand, you pronounce his surname for me, Praf.
Sarukian.
Apparently I saw him put out on social media that he's got a fight booked now.
Be interesting to see who they...
Well, he's been going back and forth with Dan Hooker, hasn't he, for months? I wonder if it's Dan Hooker.
That'd be a great fight.
Well, yeah.
In such a busy division as well, the 155ers, there's a lot of movement in there, and there's, that top 5, top 7, even top 8, there's just so much talent. So much talent. Is definitely one of the more stacked divisions.
One of the things I've just noticed that's just really standing out to me when I look at the lightweight division as well, there's a lot of individual styles as well. You've got a lot of guys that are like purely strikers, purely wrestlers, and to see how they match them up, it is almost like they got striker against wrestler in 90% of the matches, because that's kind of the way that the division has been built in that sense. So it's just really interesting. And when you look, like, for me, like when I hear like Brad Riddell versus Gregor Gillespie, I'm like, Sarukyum versus Gillespie would be more interesting to me because they've both got amazing wrestling. And then Gamrot versus Dan Hooker for me would be more interesting, but I can see why they would want to put those guys against each other just in the meritocracy of the division, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the next one we're going to talk about is obviously Song Yudong. Prath, you love this guy, right? Tell me.
Yes.
How was his performance yesterday against Casey Kenny?
Big fan of the Chinese fighters in general. Zhang Weili being my top favorite, but there are some great fighters coming out of there. But I know Song Yudong is a prominent member of Team Alpha Male, so he's out in California, Sacramento, California, training with Uriah Faber, Ultimate Fitness, bunch of killers over there as well. So he's training with just like primo talent. So and you can see it when he's in the cage. Technique, everything is incredible. A tough fight though. Casey Kenny. My God, this dude comes forward and is relentless as hell. Like amazing forward pressure. Had Song Yudong on his heels pretty much the entire fight. Song Yudong having great defense, but also just throwing really great combinations. I think very, very smart with his strike selection. Managed his distance quite well, despite having Casey Kenny being like chasing him like he owed him money or anything, something like that. Song Yudong still had the ability to have great defense, great strikes, get out of the way, great movement. You can tell this is one of Alpha Male's top prospects out of their camp. And I'm really excited to see where he sits in the bantamweight division. I know he lost to Kyler Phillips, who we all rated really highly. Then Kyler Phillips lost to Julian Paiva. So it's just interesting, MMA maths just makes no sense because you would think that Song Yudong would just destroy Julian Paiva, but who knows? Julian Paiva 2.0 might be able to be the flipping bantamweight champion. For all we know, who knows what's going to happen? Amazing performance from both guys. I think they've both got a great future. I think Song Yudong must be in like his mid to late 20s. I'm sure Casey is probably like just touching 30 now. So those guys are really very much. Sorry,
Song Yudong is 20 old.
23? Did you say?
Yes, he's 23.
What? What? That is madness. Like, just oh man, that blows my mind, man. He is so young, and that it just boosted him up even more. I didn't realize he was 23 years old. He's in California training with Uriah Faber's camp, away from China at 23 years old. I could barely look after myself at 23 years old.
With a record of 17-5 as well. You're fighting in the UFC. You've got a record of 17-5. You've just beaten a very, highly touted gentleman as well, who had a fight with Dominic Cruz, one of the greatest 145ers ever. And it's what's going on? 135ers, sorry. And it's like, what is going on,
Incredible, man. Incredible. It makes it even more astonishing and incredible to see him come out and just become the fighter he's become. Again, like the thing that stands out for me when I watch him is his technique. Like he's just got solid and everything, sharp as a nail on every single bit of the kicks, the leg kicks, the low kicks, the high kicks, body kicks. Like he's sharp everywhere, man. And I absolutely love that. So massive future for Song Yudong. I think he still has a little bit of developing to do. I think he felt the pressure of Kenny a little bit too much, I think, but obviously he still did a good enough job to get the win here. But I think going forward, he's going to need to train a little bit more on his heels and think of better ways to distribute his strikes, I think would be the thing I would think that he needs to work on going forward. But incredible performance from both. So yeah, big ratings.
George, what do you think? Where does Song Yudong go after this? Because this is, main card, numbered event. Where does he go now from here after this big win?
Man, it's so hard to know where you go because this at the moment 135 is the division right now. Obviously we're going to talk about the King of Rio in a little bit, and what a great performance that was. 135 is stacked. So where Song Yudong goes, I don't know. But all I know is that whoever he fights next is going to be an absolute. It's going to be the best against the best because that's where we are with bantamweight at the moment. Like you could, the top 15 guys are all incredible. So it's literally anybody, but the fact he's 23, there's so much time. Like it's crazy. 22 professional fights before and you're 23 years old. That just seems like crazy. Like, that's mad. But
yeah,
he was really good. He was what if he performed like that against Kyler Phillips back in March, he would have beaten Kyler Phillips. And I'm just gonna put that performance down just to an off night. Really, just had a bad night at the office. I mean, Kyler Phillips was good, like we said at the time, but he was really good last night, Song Yadong. And I had Casey Kenny winning that because I just thought Casey Kenny's forward pressure and the leg kicks, which didn't actually play a massive factor in the fight, I thought would be too much for Song Yadong. You know, not that he would finish him, but he would win on points. But yeah, he was really good. He was fantastic last night. And yeah, he's in for an exciting next kind of 18 months or so. You know, it's going to be interesting to see who they match up with because, like I said, all these guys are just so good at the moment at 135.
Yeah, and it's nice to see China get back on the win column, you know, I think because we were talking about this, I think midway through the year, a couple of months ago, that they were like the fighters from China and they were, what were they, like 0-7 or something ridiculous. It was like a super crazy split.
And my favorite Chinese fighter is coming back soon, Li Jinglang, the Leech himself, fighting old Hamzat. What a fight that's going to be. Can't wait for that one. So
it's going to be insane.
Welcome back, Lee. It's really good to see you. Here's the Grim Reaper himself.
The Grim Reaper that's been off with COVID, said he didn't want to do this anymore, was going to retire, and then he came back. And then, you know, it'll be strange to see what his mental capacity is going to be like going into the octagon, I think, after such a large amount of time off, having loads and loads of fights in a very short amount of time and being this massive, massive hype freight train and then completely going off the radar, getting very, very ill, effects of long COVID, lots of probably quite substantial, you know, like mental health issues, maybe, you know, anxiety, depression or whatever, which is why he said he was going to quit all of a sudden. So I think it'll be a strange one.
He's the first one that I can think of as well that has like he's going to come back from like COVID like that and long COVID, because I think that's kind of the big question mark on COVID in general when these fighters have come back from it. And I know long COVID is something that a lot of people suffer with post having been positive for it. So it's, for me, you know, a lot of the other sports is going to be interesting to see how it pans out in cycling and running and things like that, but interesting enough in the UFC to see how, from a cardio perspective and from a mental perspective, how they can come back from that being so far removed from the octagon. Like, it was really interesting to see how TJ would come back coming off of a PED suspension like that, but to come off of like being out for a substantial amount of time like that is going to be I think that's going to be a big question mark, even more so than TJ for me. I thought TJ kind of came back and looked, you know, fairly similar to TJ of old, but I think Hamza is going to look a lot different.
I agree.
And the UFC have been really kind to him because they've given him a really lovely, easy matchup to come back with.
Yeah, nice bounce back fight for him.
Yeah, here you go, mate. Have a nice, easy fight. Oh, brilliant. Thanks for that. Yeah, because he's a really easy fight, Jinglang. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, with a name like the Leech, you know, it's not going to be, you know, it's not like fighting Cupcake McMuffin. Do you know what I mean? You're fighting the Leech. But last night we saw Michael Chiesa come back as well. I don't think the last time we saw him was in like January, right?
Yeah, something against Neil Magny.
Yes, against Neil Magny in January, which was good. It was very good, and he did what he has been very, very good at since moving up in weight, is his wrestling, his fantastic wrestling. But Vicente Luque is no joke. This gentleman is no joke. He was on a great run. He obviously lost to Stephen Thompson, and then bang, back in the winning column. George, where does Vicente Luque go from here, man? Because this division, exactly the same as all the other divisions, is absolutely stacked right now at the top.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is like the UFC at the moment is crazy. Like, it's just stacked everywhere. You know, obviously Usman Covington is done. That's now happening. Obviously, Gilbert and Wonderboy have just fought. Masvidal's hanging around. Edwards obviously should maybe be fighting for the title. You know, blah. So Luque is going to have to fit in somewhere to this now. He's now part of that conversation. I said last night that I thought Luque against Edwards might make sense. You know, if they're going to make Edwards fight somebody else again. if I'm Leon Edwards, I probably don't want that fight because I'd rather fight someone like Masvidal because it has a bit more of there's a bit more to it. You know, there's a bit more of it's more of a name than Luke is, so it probably carries a bit more weight. Weirdly enough, even though to us probably a win over Vicente Luque is a bit more impressive than Masvidal right now. So yeah, I don't quite know, where Luque goes, but I saw some people saying it's a poor shout out calling out the champion. I don't think it is, to be honest. I think that's a really sensible shout out. Why not throw your shot at it? Your last 11 fights, you finished 10 of them, I believe. You've only lost the one, Stephen Wonderboy, which Wonderboy just turned up that night and was just put on a clinic. So, it happens. So the guy is completely, he's in such a groove at the moment, Vicente Luque, that you're wondering who does stop him, to be honest. Because I picked Chiesa in the preview show because I thought that maybe he might grind Luque down. But halfway through the week, I started to see the kind of embedded episodes and all this kind of stuff. And then you start to see he's won his last 20 fights. He's finished 18 of them. I was like, man, I might have to change my mind here and think about Vicente Luque a little bit. So, yeah, in terms of where he goes, I mean, it's going to be a big fight. It's going to be a top 5 guy because he's a top 5 guy himself now. So he's in for a big, big fight. And he's a dangerous matchup. But if the UFC aren't going to book Leon Edwards into a title fight, then for me, Leon Edwards and Vicente Luque, probably it makes the most sense. They seem to be the 2 next guys in line to maybe fight the champion, providing that Colby doesn't win the second fight, and they obviously do the trilogy.
Yeah. I mean, there's some mad stuff going on, some really, really mad stuff, just like the grappling exchanges from last night. Vicente Luque obviously being on the bottom, turtling up, and then, Chiesa nearly getting a rear naked choke, quickly changing it all around, lots of scrambles, and then all of a sudden he's getting completely danced out of consciousness. It was just crazy. But Prath, Vicente Luque is only a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but there must be different levels of brown belt, right? Because this guy looked like an absolute monster on the ground yesterday in these exchanges, fighting off the hands, turning, great hand position, leg position, and then sinking a DAS as well, which is not the most common submission to get caught in or to be giving out. So, give me your 2 cents on that, brother.
And also, hang on, first of all, a brown belt is still a very, very high level grappler. I will say that. I will say that. But because the majority of the UFC is a black belt,
exactly,
it makes sense. I understand what you mean by that. Do you know what, man? I've been a massive fan of Vicente Luque for years now, absolutely massive fan. I remember the first fight where he really took my attention. He fought Bilal Muhammad at UFC 205, which I believe was the Conor versus Alvarez card back in the day. And he had an amazing knockout victory over Bilal Muhammad. And I was sold then. I thought he was incredible. I thought his the striking combinations, his techniques were incredible. And I just thought this guy's got everything to take him to the top here. He then consequently lost his next fight against Leon Edwards, but that is the rhetoric for most of Leon Edwards' opponents here, especially his last little run here, put together an incredible run. But since then, I mean, he has pretty much been unblemished, apart from Stephen Thompson, as you mentioned, put on an absolute clinic that night. I also think to some degree that that Vicente Luque's wrestling might not be as good as Gilbert Burns or some of the other guys that have been able to really hold Stephen Thompson down. Not to say that his grappling is bad. I'm just saying his wrestling, actually physically getting Stephen Thompson to the ground is tough work. And I think because he wasn't able to, he just kind of had to sit in striking range with Stephen Thompson. And who wins that fight? Nobody wins that fight apart from Stephen Thompson. So incredible fight. And also, not his first Anaconda / DAS choke. He got that in his last one. He got that in his last fight against Tyron Woodley, wore him completely out, and then DAS choked him and put him to sleep. And incredible scramble, great rear naked choke from Michael Chiesa. It looked like he had it. It was super deep. Shows the scrambling abilities of Vicente Luque, able to get out of that position. Kind of had Chiesa on his back and then got out of the rear naked choke and then spun around. faked with one arm to like entry into a Darce choke, and then went with the other one, like immediately switched to the other arm and just caught him clean. And once you lock up that hand on the bicep, man, it is game over. And he looks like he has an insane squeeze. He must have just, I think that must be his go-to choke, because you see a lot of the guys that do Darce chokes, they have won them multiple times. Like Tony Ferguson, for instance, he has won multiple fights by Darce choke. And I think once you get that feel for the position, then it's just such an easy go-to one, because it can be done in so many different positions. Imagine just even up against the fence, like you just have to pull their head down. And once you get their head down, then you can easily snap that position in. And I think once you have a feel for that position, you can just kind of find it from anywhere. And that seems to be the rhetoric here for Vicente Luque. Even when he's in danger, even when he's about to be submitted, he can still turn it around, still slip in a Darce choke, and still win by submission. An incredible performance. So, and, you know, it was really cool to see Michael Chiesa in his stand-up as well, really hang in there with Vicente Luque, because he's not an easy person to hang in there on the feet, and was able to implement his game plan up until a point. And obviously Vicente's experience there just really, really took over there. And I think Michael Chiesa kind of, I could feel the energy, I could feel the nervousness and the energy, especially when he was getting announced by Bruce Buffer, screaming in Bruce Buffer's face. Like I don't know, I felt like he was maybe a little bit overexcited, or maybe because of the crowd. You know, the crowd obviously was pumping them up, because the crowd was very, very lit in Houston. So I can imagine maybe that was something to do with it, but, you know, also don't want to take anything from Vicente Luque. What an incredible performance, an incredible submission. Sky's the limit for that guy, man. And I'd really love to see him in a big fight. And I know you guys are going to hate the name I'm about to drop, but just from a like boosting his name perspective, it works so well. But in the rhetoric of the welterweight division, I know you guys are going to give me some S here, but Nate Diaz needs to be that next fight. And I think that on a numbered card would make Vicente Luque a superstar.
Two things. Nate Diaz is never taking that fight.
No, he isn't.
No, no chance. And did you know Bruce Buffer's mistake last night as he's announcing Michael Chiesa?
I didn't notice.
He got, as he was reading out where he was from, he got the state wrong, and so like said California, and then was like Washington. He almost got a bit like the first time I've ever seen old Bruce Buffer flustered. I was like, oh god, the world's gonna stop turning.
Have you seen how he does the cards? He's got it in like a hole on the top of the card that he puts his thumb in, and he literally like throws the cards behind him. It's insane, man. I have so much respect for Bruce Buffer.
It's going to be a very, very sad day. A very, very sad day when he decides to hang up the
other dude just does not hit. The other dude just does not hit. Like, I like him. I respect what you do. Joel Martinez, or whatever your name is, dude. Love what you do, but man, you're just not Bruce, man. Like when Joe goes and like Dominic Cruz or someone like that takes over the booth, and like probably deservedly so, it's just not going to be the same.
Yeah, I just think it's, you know, Bruce Buffer just has that catchphrase, you know, that everyone just jumps on board with. Whereas Joe Martinez, you know, the fight fans, are you ready? And it's just a bit like, settle down, man, settle down. It just feels a little bit Bellator to me. Just feels a little bit Bellator, you know. But what I was going to ask you, Prath, was obviously a brown belt is still very, very high up. So we're not going to take anything away from his grappling and jiu-jitsu, you know, portfolio. But everyone in the UFC seems to be a black belt, right? Are they giving these black belts out too freely, or to I know black belts that have been, you know, fighting
a little bit.
I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for like 10, 12 years, and they're only just black belts. Then you see like a 21-year-old in the UFC get a black belt, and you think, strange.
Off of like a TKO win as well. And I'm like,
yes, it was.
How does that make sense? But okay,
yeah, wasn't it? He got his black belt.
No. He got his black belt when he submitted Darren Till, who was just like, you know, like a white belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Can you remember the one with Riochich back in March? Yeah. For 15 minutes, and they said, "Here's your black belt." It's like there was no grappling. There was no grappling. I thought, what the?
Yeah. Oh man, In that sense, I think they're a bit fugazi in that sense. But like, I guess you never know what they're like in camp. Like, maybe they made some sort of massive strides in their grappling in camp, and that was kind of like, get through the fight. Once you get through the fight, here's your belt.
Don't give it to
I'm not here.
Don't give it to him national TV.
Especially after he'd done nothing for 15 minutes.
International TV. International.
Yeah.
Literally.
Sorry, international pay-per-view, the whole shebang TV. Don't give it to him then. Everyone thinks you're a mug.
Yeah, man. I think those black belts are a bit weird, but like I would say, I think to a degree you have to be at a certain skill level to be able to compete in the UFC in general. But I think those things are determined and figured out in their camps. Like, I'm sure they match them up against other people that are at that level that they can kind of get the best out of each other, and then slowly promote them from there. But I wanted to circle back to one of your original questions, which was, is there like almost like levels within the brown belt? And I would say kind of, yeah. But I would also say that you kind of wouldn't really rank it in the same way. I would say like you have those guys that are a little bit more leaning towards the black, like they're about to get their black belt, or they're, maybe a couple of months off of getting their black belt. But only the teacher would be that I would say would be the only one to really determine that. But yeah, apart from that, there's no real like other foundation, I would say, to the belt ranking system like that. But I would assume that if you can hang in there with like a world-class grappler in an MMA environment, then theoretically you should be okay to handle someone with like relatively decent jiu-jitsu experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would say, I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you were weighing under 155 pounds and you weren't a black belt. I think you'd be doing yourself a pretty massive disservice. I think once you hit 170 and above, you got to have, you're thinking a little bit more mass striking, grappling defense, or like takedown defense, I would say is your main kind of vocal points there. But if you're under 155 pounds and you're not like a legit black belt, then people like Brian Ortega will snap your neck off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, completely, man, completely. And it's nice to, it's not nice, but it's strange to see, a brown belt that can submit a black belt, and then you think, doesn't really kind of work out. But then it's obviously based on like a case by case kind of thing, isn't it? And all the teachers in the various different camps would they
set their own rhetoric, so there's no way of us being like, okay, here's the pathway. He is 2 steps away from being a black belt. We don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. And talking of rankings and belts, Jose Aldo Jr. Wow, what a performance last night. The King is back. Wow. Fighting obviously at 135 now, previous champ at 145. And then naturally the entire MMA Twitter, Conor McGregor fans just decided to post a video of him getting knocked out in 13 seconds, like 7 years ago. Everyone needs to calm down a little bit. Do you know what I mean? But what a performance by that gentleman yesterday. What a performance. Very, very crisp hands against a very, very difficult opponent. He just completely controlled every aspect of the game. George, we always speak about how old/young Jose Aldo is, very much like yourself, my friend. And it felt like he really turned back the clock yesterday, and it was like a 24-year-old Jose Aldo instead of the 31-year-old that he is, or whatever, But talk me through his performance and how he managed to implement his game plan so early on in the fight to really predetermine his win yesterday.
I'll happily be the Jose Aldo of this podcast. Happily. That makes me one of the greatest of all time. So I'll happily take that. It kind of felt like he rolled back the years, but Jose Aldo isn't really that old. He's 34, but so he's still got 3-4 years at the top of this, 135-pound division. And last night was great. Initially, I was a bit concerned because there was like no leg kicks at all, and I was like, that seems a bit weird, like Jose Aldo of no leg kicks. But that boxing that he's been working on was pretty amazing. And especially against like Pedro Munoz, who like has got this kind of like almost like, because he's obviously a bit shorter, he's got this kind of like bulldog kind of like brawler like nature to him, where he's just going to like bulldoze his way towards you, and the patience and the methodical approach from Aldo to like kind of like wait for Munoz to make his move and then like counter that and hit him with those kind of like 3 or 4 punch combinations, which were getting stronger and stronger as the fight went on. It was really impressive. And when that third round started and he started piling on him, started like mixing in the leg kicks as well, man, it was a joy to watch last night. Like Jose Aldo was a joy, to be honest. I think he was my favorite fighter to watch last night. It was just 15 minutes of class. And everyone else around him now goes, oh man, like I really don't fancy being matched up with him, because what Jose Aldo has compared to some of these guys like Sandhagen, like Rob Font, is okay in a different weight class. He's been a champion. He knows what it takes to get to that point. He also fought for the belt last year against Jan, and actually in that fight wasn't that bad. It's just that Jan had a bigger gas tank and was able to go longer. That was the big problem he had there. If he performs like he did last night against any of these top guys, he gives them one hell of a fight. And it would not be surprising should they match him up with Corey Sandhagen next. It wouldn't be surprising if they matched him up with the loser of the Jan Sterling title fight. And it would not be surprising one bit if in the next 18 months, Jose Aldo is in another title fight. He was just pure brilliance last night. I can't talk high enough about him. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. And the fact that all these idiot MMA fans, all they think of is Conor McGregor when they think of Jose Aldo, it is such an incredible lack of respect for what is one of the greats of this sport. I'm so pleased he put in a performance like that last night, because there were question marks and there was this kind of, maybe Pedro Munoz is a bit like Jose Aldo. He's young, he's the same age, but he's kind of had less fights, so he's got a bit more in the tank. Maybe that's not the case. The class showed through last night, and I could talk about Jose Aldo all night, man. He was amazing.
It was even more confusing that people were showing the Conor and Aldo clip even after Conor tweeted saying like what a legend Aldo is. Like, if the dude can give him respect, then the rest of you idiot MMA fans, simps, whatever you want to call them, if they can, if Conor has the can actually do it, then the rest of you need to chill out and follow suit. One of the legends of this sport, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, just go back and just like look at all of the amazing title defenses that he had. And all, like, come on, like, sometimes in this sport, SHI happens, and like with McGregor, it just happened. It is what it is. We've seen it in other fights. That is nowhere near the defining moment of his career. It's such a bigger legacy than that Jose Aldo has made for himself so far.
It is unfortunate that these things do happen. It's a freak accident almost, isn't it? You can say, it was done with the pure malice and it was done with intent, and I knew exactly what to do, like the Masvidal running knee on Ben Askren, and this kind of left hook with Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo. These things do happen, and they are freak occurrences. And it's unfortunate that your highlight reel is going to be someone else's kind of, quick. Let's not speak about that anymore. Stephen Thompson, when he got knocked out by Pettis,
yes,
when he jumped off the back of the cage and then kind of, that did like a Superman kind of hook, jab, cross kind of weird punch thing. And it's like, how can you have a look at that one moment and say, well, yeah, Stephen Thompson got knocked out by Anthony Pettis. And it's like, yeah, but Stephen Thompson's one of the greatest fighters of all time. Like, he's a very, very talented man.
Hold on. It's a bit strong statement. He's a great fighter. He's one of the best strikers of all time, for sure.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest fighters. I didn't say he was, in the UFC. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time. In the course of the world, he's a very, very good fighter. He's got a fantastic record.
His overall fighting record is insane. Like, if you look at his Taekwondo fights and his MMA fights.
That's why I said fighter and not UFC fighter. Yeah, I kept it nice and broad on the spectrum because his credentials outside of the UFC are very, very good as well.
He never lost a kickboxing fight.
Kickboxing, sorry, not taekwondo. Same thing, ish.
Like 60-0 or something in kickboxing, which is mental.
Boxing, K1, taekwondo, karate, it's all the same, man. It's all the same.
Muay Thai, kickboxing, similar ish, knees, elbows.
Leith way, it's all in there.
Left way, yeah.
Did you just going off topic a little bit, did you see the guy that got knocked out in the Olympics at karate? And he didn't get a gold medal because you're not allowed to knock people out.
His heart. I remember that I was listening to the commentators being like, okay, it looks like he's been disqualified for kicking the dude too hard in the face. Okay.
I was just thinking about this, right? If you had a glass jaw, like, you know, Amir Khan kind of when he came back after being in the jungle, kind of
Luke Rockhold.
Yeah, Luke Rockhold kind of glass jaw, man. And then you're in karate and then you just get knocked out every 2 seconds from every kick there is. Like, surely that works in your favor. You're there like, yeah, I'm the gold medalist. Oh, wait, no, it's just because I get kicked in their head too hard. Like, I don't understand that.
So did they wake the other dude up and give him the gold medal? Or did they just wake him up and he was like, you won. You got knocked out, but you won.
Yeah. I mean, that's a proper wooden spoon, isn't it? You would you wouldn't even want it. You know, you wouldn't even want the medal. You'd be like, oh, great, I got knocked out. And, you know, the world is now. And
then his coach goes, meet my friend Aljamain Sterling. This is how you celebrate. This is how you celebrate.
Yeah, you see him on Instagram afterwards, like chewing this gold medal. Like, he's so chuffed with it. He's got his entire family around. And he's like, yeah, look at that. He's just loving life, man. Loving life.
Oh,
it's a little bit like an interim belt, you know. It's kind of gold that is not overly deserving. I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of this interim thing. I don't really think we needed it last night. Obviously, now that we've moved to the main event. Now, I just want to tell you a little fact about last night, right? I went to bed at about 12:30 because, 1 a.m. I went to bed because I'm not staying up to watch these fights because I work far too much to stay up to watch these fights. Now, my body clock woke me up in the second round of this main event. What kind of mad UFC body clock is this? I don't understand. I cracked my eyes and I was like, oh, it's 5:30. Oh, let me see if the fights are still on. I was like, looking through like broken eyes. I was like, oh, the main event's on. Quick, let me just watch that in bed. Honestly, it was crazy. I woke up and then it was fantastic because I went to sleep like 10 minutes later. But, you know, how mad is that? I don't understand. I'm a freak of nature. But what a performance from Cyril Gane. What a performance. I mean, I think, I can't remember who we actually picked for this, George, but I think we were going to go with Derrick Lewis knocking him out, right?
Yeah, man. Wow. We went with, and we said for the fact was that it would be amazing if Cyril Gane went through the whole 25 minutes and didn't let Derrick Lewis touch him once. That was where I kind of stood. I was like, because Derrick Lewis probably needs to touch Cyril Gane once with that big right hand. That's probably game over. But Cyril Gane, man, like I said last night in the group chat, I was waiting to be convinced about him. There is clearly a very, very talented mixed martial artist in there, but I needed that performance. And I was like, well, what would be really impressive would be that he doesn't allow Derrick Lewis to do anything and then he finishes him. That would be really impressive. And that's what he did. He basically Derrick Lewis did nothing, literally zero. He might as well have been sat watching the fight because I think he threw 7 strikes in 14 minutes. I mean, I don't know whether to blame Derrick Lewis or go, man, Cyril Gane, that's just incredible. Like, that's what I probably should be saying, because that would be amazing, to be honest, that he basically null and void Derrick Lewis for the whole time. And then when he decided to put the pressure on, Derrick Lewis couldn't handle it. Derrick Lewis couldn't handle the pressure, basically, last night. He cracked. That's what happened in front of the home fan. He even said it like during the week on the embedded episodes. He said it in the fighter meetings with Daniel Cormier and Dominic Cruz. He's like, I'm really struggling with the pressure this week. And Daniel Cormier was like, just keep people around you that you trust, you know, and they'll help you with the pressure. The pressure ate him up inside, I think, last night. And Cyril Gane took advantage of him. Cyril Gane, for me, is now a legit worthy contender. I think he does cause Francis Ngannou problems. If you ask me right now for prediction, I still think Francis Ngannou beats him, because I'm going to have the same line that I have about Derrick Lewis, that at some point in the 25 minutes, Ngannou will find a way to touch him. But I don't think really, we need to be, as fans, we have to be concerned about how good, interesting or not interesting the fights are. The one person who should be absolutely getting back into the office and scribbling down notes like mad is Eric Nixick, because this guy's got to unpick a puzzle that at the moment looks really quite confusing, because Cyril Gane has got an incredible IQ. He manages the range brilliantly. And when he wants to engage, he does it really in a very clever way that almost makes the other fighter's mind go fuzzy. So it's a huge riddle to solve. And it's going to be, and I think it's a fascinating title fight. I really do. I think it's an interesting one between Ngannou and Gane, and I look forward to seeing it play out. And obviously, then the winner will get the opportunity to fight John Jones for the title next year.
Yeah, I mean, I half agree with you and half just think that Derrick Lewis is not a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. He's very good at getting up when he gets put down because he's a very large man. And, he kind of rearranged his cardiovascular routines, I assume, because he's got a better gas tank than he used to. Go on, George, fire in, man.
I'm going to play devil's advocate then. Ngannou's not a massively well-rounded mixed martial artist either.
I would say he's more technically sound than Derrick Lewis.
He's more well-rounded than Derrick Lewis. I think Derrick Lewis has got a fantastic knockout power, but it's like saying, Mark Hunt or, was a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Well, I don't really think he was, he was very good at his kicking every now and again. When Derrick Lewis throws a kick, it looks very awkward. And it looks like
Derrick Lewis is Mark Hunt with leg kicks.
Yeah. I mean, he just got completely annihilated with the leg kicks yesterday. I didn't see a very, when Cyril Gane was putting on pressure and stuff like that, Derrick Lewis, I don't think Derrick Lewis would ever shoot for a takedown. For me, if you're in a position where you're getting picked apart on the feet and you attempt to lock up and grapple, then that is you being a more well-rounded mixed martial artist. Whereas yesterday, he just shelled up, knowing that he couldn't really offer anything to Cyril Gane's, attacking. I don't know.
I just don't see if it was I'm not defending Cyril Gane completely here and saying Ngannou, but I don't see if it was the same with Ngannou last night, that Ngannou would suddenly start shooting for the takedown. I don't think he'd do that either.
Are you trying to say that Ngannou is not a finisher?
I'm not. No, obviously not. But I'm saying I think it's a really, and I'm not criticizing you two, but I've seen it a lot on social media today. I think it's a really naive point of view to think that Ngannou just walks through this guy. I don't think he does. I think there's awkward moments for Ngannou in this fight. I think Cyril Gane is.
I'm not saying Ngannou beats Gane with ease. I'm just saying that Derrick Lewis. All I'm saying is Derrick Lewis is not a fully well-rounded mixed martial artist, whereas Francis Ngannou, I think, is a more well-rounded mixed martial artist than Derrick Lewis. So I think Derrick Lewis made Gane look better than he is yesterday.
No, and that's fine. And I won't disagree. I don't disagree with you about that. I just, I don't know, man. I just think that there's moments in that title fight that will be uncomfortable for Francis Ngannou. I still think he wins, but I think there are moments in that fight that make it. I think it's just because he's such a different heavyweight. We've never seen a guy like this before. It's so new and unique. It almost feels alien to what we're watching. Like last night, you're watching, it's like this guy looks like a middleweight. He moves like a weight. He doesn't seem normal. And I just find it intriguing. I'm really intrigued to see what Fernand Lopez comes up with to try and win that title fight, in whenever that plays out, probably at the back end of the year. So, yeah.
And talk about a guy who knows Francis Ngannou pretty damn well is going to be Fernand Lopez, being his old trainer. Actually, just wanted to come in and just throw in a quick statistic here that you guys may or may not have known, which is that Cyril Gane has not lost a round except on one judge's scorecard against Alexander Volkov. The first round against Alexander Volkov, one judge gave Alexander Volkov a round. Apart from that, Cyril Gane has not lost a round so far in the UFC.
Yeah.
So if I was on the breakdown last week, I would have really, really accepted the fact that you think that Derrick Lewis could potentially touch him within 25 minutes. I would have disagreed with you guys and said that Francis Ngannou has a little bit more capabilities to land a hit within that 25 minutes. But Derrick Lewis, I just don't think he has that. He's not on his toes. He's not, he's nothing defensively stands out for me for Derrick Lewis. Like he doesn't wrestle. He's not quick on his toes. He's not circling around the cage. He's just kind of standing in front of the other dude and hoping he can land a shot. Mm-hmm. And I just think Cyril Gane, with his boxing, kickboxing, karate kind of style that he kind of throws in the octagon, I think is very interesting. And I think it's so much more different to the rest of the heavyweight division in terms of just the style of his stance, his standing style. When he's in there, he's very light on his feet. And he's got great range. He's got that kind of his left or his right arm, because he switches stances regularly as well, which is amazing to watch as well. But he's using his left and right arm really effectively to get that range in there and just to really determine that. And just an absolute piston with the other hand. Like when he, kind of feels out with one hand, and when he lands in with the jab, man, it is quick as work, man. Amazing leg kicks, incredible just game plan really for someone like Derrick Lewis, where the only other real game plan that people had against Derrick Lewis was to wrestle him. You saw against Curtis Blades, against DC, like that was the game plan. And you've never really seen someone come into Derrick Lewis and go, I'm gonna stand and strike with you, and I'm still gonna finish you. Mm-hmm. So insanely impressive from Cyril Gane. And I think it's going to be an incredible fight. Ngannou versus Gane. I am really, really, really hoping, and I know you boys are as well, that we can hopefully see this fight in France, where it deserves to be. It really, really deserves to be in France. Paris, France, got to be in a big arena there, because I think the people of France deserve it as well. One of their guys is going to be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And I think it's such a cool place for Ngannou to come back into his old territory, into, fighting his old camp, fighting his old teammate, to really solidify and unify himself as the heavyweight champion of the world. Before this fight, I thought that of Francis already. Francis was already the heavyweight champion of the world. He beat Stipe clean as a whistle, beat Stipe Miocic. And Cyril Gane to have this interim title, it is a bit stupid. I think for the fact that he's going to be able to earn some pay-per-view dollars off of this fight against Ngannou is the only really big reason to give an interim title fight. And this is the thing I kind of actually appreciate about Dana White, is when he does describe, okay, why are you doing an interim fight? He's like, well, when this guy fights for the actual undisputed title on a pay-per-view card, he's going to get pay-per-view money. So, why wouldn't we give him an interim title kind of thing? And it makes the fight bigger, I guess, from a publicity standpoint, not in our minds. I know, like me sitting here right now before Friday night of last week, I wasn't sitting there thinking, God, whoever wins this fight tomorrow, they're really going to be, man, that heavyweight title is going to be so disputed right now. I didn't sit there and think that on Friday night before the fight going in on Saturday. So that hasn't changed at all with Cyril Gane winning the title. It's not changed that in any way. I still think Francis Ngannou is the heavyweight champion of the world, is the man to beat. And I think Cyril Gane is going to be an incredibly tough fight for him. I think technically, again, is the thing that is just the buzzword here with Gane, man. I think technically he sweeps everyone in the division. I don't think anyone else in the division is going to give him even a fraction of trouble. The only person I think would be John Jones, because I think John Jones is one of the only people that technically has the ability to stand in their game plan for someone who does come in with that kind of, he looks like he comes in with a solid game plan. Like Derrick Lewis doesn't strike me as someone that comes in going, okay, well, I'm going to make sure I throw like 30 overhand rights in here. I'm going to make sure I shoot for at least 3 takedowns. He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. Cyril Gane strikes me as like, I'm going to make sure I throw exactly 15 leg kicks. I'm going to throw, I'm going to measure exactly like this, throw exactly these amount of punches. And that's exactly what John Jones is like. So when those two clash, I think that's going to be the heavyweight fight of fights. I don't think that Ngannou versus Gane is going to be tremendously exciting in the same sense of the fight last night, in the sense that like when they get into the fight, I think it is going to be just a very technical fight. And it's just going to be all of us on the edge of our seat waiting for Francis to clip him with a shot. And I think it's going to be Francis Ngannou swinging at a lot of air until he hits him. If he hits him and puts him down, he hits him and puts him down. But that's the golden thing. That's the golden ticket we're all waiting to watch.
I disagree. I disagree. I think the Francis Ngannou that we saw against Stipe, the patient Francis, who managed distance better, who didn't rush in when he knew he'd clipped him, who waited patiently on the outside, knowing that he had a hurt opponent, waiting for the perfect moment. I think if we see him against Gane, it's going to be I'm not sure if we're going to see a fight that's going to be more like, Derrick Lewis versus Francis Ngannou, which was 15 minutes of them both looking at each other going, right, well, a chess match of, right, I'm going to move my pawn forward and then I'm going to move, all right, they're moving their pawn forward and then I'm going to move it backwards. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just going to be a bit of I think exactly why I said that. It might even be a boring fight.
That's exactly why I said that, man, because I think, and also these two know each other. They know, like, God knows if I get clipped here with a shot, I'm out of here. And I think Francis knows that he can be like, he can defensively, Gane can do enough to drag out 25 minutes and potentially just outpoint him. And I think both guys will know that. And I think for that reason alone, at least the first 2 rounds are going to be quite boring, because I think the first 2 rounds are going to be them going, okay, well, I need to just get the edge here. I need to get the edge. I'm going to throw just a couple of more strikes more than the other guy. And then I think from round 3 onwards, knowing that these are the 3 rounds that count the most, they're going to start swinging for the fences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ish.
Yeah, but the big question now is, we obviously know we're going to see Gane versus Ngannou at some point, hopefully at the end of this year. Where do we see Derrick Lewis going from here? Because I believe he's fought most people in the top 5, top 6, right? So we're going to have to see a rematch with someone. And who is that someone going to be? I saw something online, perhaps Volkov again.
He's booked. He's booked, though.
When is he booked?
He's booked for October on Fight Island. He's fighting Tybura.
But then, is Derrick Lewis going to want to fight again this year? Maybe not. Well, do we see him early next year?
What if Tybura was to beat Volkov? That's a guy who's rising up the rankings well quick.
Absolutely. Is Derrick Lewis going to be a stand-in for that fight?
I've got it, boys. I've got it, boys. Even though he's never ever going to agree to it. But it's got to be Stipe Miocic. Stipe Miocic versus Derrick Lewis. Both guys coming off of losses. I think Derrick Lewis has fought everybody else in the division. I can't see him fighting anyone else, and it not being a weird fight. Like even Rosenstrike would be a weird fight. Volkov would be a weird fight. Curtis Blades, I don't think Curtis Blades gets a rematch for like a little while still. Stipe Miocic is the only one that really kind of stands out for me, and that's the only 2 people that haven't fought each other.
Stipe's in talks to fight John Jones, no?
Yeah,
John Jones is not fighting until 2022, though.
Against Miocic.
I don't want to see
against the winner. I don't think he fights Miocic, man. I really don't. I think John Jones is going to sit out until early 2022 and see who's the champion. I think I see Francis and Gane fighting hopefully before the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then once those 2 are fought, then I think John Jones is the next fight for them. I think from just watching the press conference alone, I don't think Dana White is super interested in him fighting. Well, I think he is super interested in him fighting Stipe Miocic, but I don't think Dana White has it in his mind that he's got that fight booked, despite all the reports being like, yeah, they're going to get that fight done.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great fight for John Jones to come in at heavyweight and fight, to have a fight before the championship. But I think John Jones puts himself on such a pedestal that I don't think he takes, why do I need to take a warm-up fight? I'm going straight in. I'm John Jones, man. I'm the greatest of all time. Like, that's how I think it goes down.
It's also risky for John Jones to take that Stipe fight.
Stipe's good, man.
Stipe's good, and Stipe as well. Like, he's the greatest heavyweight of all time, we would say. Like, if John was to lose, then your heavyweight run is over before it even began. So, in that aspect, you can't do. I don't really know where Derrick Lewis goes, though. I don't really like the Stipe one. I get, but I think Stipe
just because it's the only fight. I think it's just it's the only fight he hasn't really fought. Everybody else, he's actually fought everybody else in this division.
What if Rosenstrike was to come through? Have they fought each other, Rosenstrike and Lewis?
That's a good question.
They're just two lads that like to swing at each other. What about just doing those two? They're just going to go hell for leather, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think they fought each other.
No, because Rosenstrike hasn't been in the UFC for as long as we're imagining, I don't think.
Yeah, maybe in the last 2 years or so.
I'm not 100% sure on that one, but he hasn't been in the UFC for very long at all. But that is the wrap up.
Curveball, Derrick Lewis opponent, Tom Aspinall. Let's go, Britain.
That would be a very, very high up the ranking fight for Tom.
It'd be a mad fight.
But he is a UK prospect.
Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be a very, very dangerous heavyweight as well. A very, very dangerous heavyweight.
Get those two, book them for Birmingham or something like that. Put them in a main event. There you go. There's a reason. Done.
That's a fight night for you. That's a fight night. And we will be talking about the next fight night coming up, which is Jared Cannonier versus Kelvin Gastelum next weekend, which is going to be a very, very exciting fight. Is it the weekend after?
Break now.
We got a weekend off.
Yeah, man. We've got a week's break now. And then 21st is Killer Gorilla. The 28th is Barboza against Chikadze.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the September the 4th, it's old Darren Till's back, isn't he?
There is some crazy, crazy fights coming up. And the fact that we're even saying the word September is completely, completely baffling. I really, really do not know or understand where this year has gone. But until next time, we are the Fight and Talk 2 team. If you've enjoyed the content, please do hit like, hit subscribe, share with all your friends. And of course, we do have a bit of merchandise as well. George, thank you as always in Casual Crush Corner. And Prath, I hope that isolation treats you well and you don't have to do it too many times over the next couple of weeks. But the laws are changing anyway, I believe, in the UK. So you'll only have to do it for 6 days next time or whatever it's going to change to.
Yeah.
It's
4 days left. Pray for me, people. 4 days left.
4 days left. But we'll be doing a pre-fight for the Kelvin Gastelum versus Jared Cannonier. And we'll be doing it next week. So stay tuned for that. And thank you very much for listening. We will see you all next time.